Hello, I'm Ollie and this is CriminOlly, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today, macabre short stories. I want to talk to you about the collection 19 Claws and a Blackbird by Augustina Bazterrica. So if you watch a lot of BookTube, the name Augustina Bazterrica will probably sound familiar to you. If you haven't made the connection, she's the author of this book, Tender is the Flesh, which was absolutely huge. So it came out in English in 2020, has loads of critical acclaim, and I think sold by the bucket load as well. And it's certainly a book you see people talking about on BookTube and Bookstagram and places like that a lot, and deservedly so. It's a really, really good book. So I read it a few months ago. I thought it was a very interesting and disturbing book. So a book about kind of industrialized cannibalism, a kind of dystopian novel about a world where a virus has made the meat of animals poisonous to humans, and so we've decided in our wisdom to start farming ourselves. So a very interesting book and very well told. I thought it was really, really good. Now, I said it came out in English in 2020. So Augustina Bazterrica is an Argentine author, and this book first came out in Argentina in 2017, and it's actually her third book, I believe. I think she wrote a couple of other books before then, neither of which have been published in English. So when I saw that she had a new book coming out, I immediately wanted to read it. So I was able to get an advance copy from the publisher, and I finished it now, and I have to say, unfortunately, I wasn't terribly impressed. And I do wonder whether this is a case of the publisher wanting to get another book out by an author that they've had a great deal of success with. I think it's interesting that they've gone with this book rather than with republishing one of her earlier books that have come out in Argentina. And I don't know if those books are, because I haven't been able to find much information about them, I don't know if those books are tonally very different from Tender is the Flesh, if they are, not in that kind of horrific, disturbing kind of category of books, and therefore maybe not what readers of Tender is the Flesh would expect. 19 Claws and a Blackbird is quite close to Tender is the Flesh. It's a series of short stories which are often horrific or macabre in some way. Some of them are quite disturbing, some of them quite chilling. But for me, it didn't hit the mark. And I think short stories are difficult to write. And the thing that struck me again and again reading 19 Claws and a Blackbird is that these are stories that are, well, they don't really feel like stories at all a lot of the time. They feel like pieces of prose, exercises in prose about a particular thing happening rather than a story. So to take an example, the first story is about a young woman who's in her kind of back garden, and a body falls out of the building next to her and lands at her feet in her back garden, and it's her kind of ruminating on that and her reaction to that experience and the reaction of the people who live in the apartment buildings around her to that experience. So it was interesting, but it didn't really feel like a story, and I'm someone who is drawn much more to stories than to other kinds of writing. So this kind of book, which felt quite experimental in style in some ways, didn't really work for me. Now, Tender is the Flesh definitely has a good story. It has a great concept at its heart, but it has a really good story running through it as well. And I felt again and again with the stories in 19 Claws and a Blackbird that just wasn't the case. There was one that really stood out for me. There was one story, I'm just going to check what it was called. It was called Elena Marie Sandoz, which I thought was fantastically good. So this is a story about someone, the narrator, who becomes obsessed with an actress that they've seen in a B movie, and she's only in this movie for like a few seconds. You just kind of see her face in the film, but they become completely obsessed with her, and it's about what they do as a result of that obsession. And this was, I thought, a brilliant short story, and one of those short stories that takes something that could have been padded out to be the length of a novel and distills the really important parts of it into just a few pages. And it was chilling, it was effective, and from the first few lines I was completely engaged and absorbed by it. Now, all the other stories, like literally all the other stories in the collection, failed to engage me in that way. I would start reading them, and fairly quickly I could feel my mind switching off to them. They just didn't have that hook to, that you need to pull you into a book and to make you want to read more of it. So, I finished the collection, but it really felt like a missed opportunity to me, in that Bazterrica clearly has an enormous amount of talent. Tender is the Flesh shows that, and that one short story I think shows that as well. And I do wonder if the publishers are just trying to get something else out by her that they think will appeal to the same audience as Tender is the Flesh. And unfortunately, I'm not sure it will. It may do on the surface. It may be that it sells well, but I can't see this having anywhere near the impact or the success of Tender is the Flesh, because I personally thought it was a fairly weak collection. But I may well be wrong. So if you've read 19 Claws and a Blackbird and you liked it, do let me know in the comments why you liked it. I'm interested to hear other people's opinions of it. I think for me it felt like a collection that was trying to be kind of literary, that was trying to be quite smart and clever and use language in interesting ways, but wasn't necessarily focused on being engaging as a series of stories. I'm someone who likes stories that have an appealing plot, that have something that grabs me, like Tender is the Flesh did, and unfortunately the stories in 19 Claws and a Blackbird just failed to do that. Okay, time for a random book from the shelves. Today's book is Exquisite Corpse by Poppy C. Bright, a fantastically horrible novel about two serial killers who meet and form a relationship. Absolutely brilliant stuff. Now, I wonder if anyone's ahead of me and has figured out why I've chosen this book for today's video. The reason is that when Tender is the Flesh was published in Spanish, it was called Cadáver Exquisito, which is Spanish for Exquisite Corpse. I'm assuming that when they came to publish it in English, the publishers realised there was already quite a well-known book with that name, so called it Tender is the Flesh instead. But anyway, Exquisite Corpse, the English version, is definitely worth reading. So I hope you found that interesting. Let me know what you think of Augustina Bazterrica. Let me know if you think 19 Claws and a Blackbird is a hit or a miss. And as always, thanks very much for watching. Hope you're safe and well out there. Hope you're reading good stuff. And I'll speak to you again very soon. Cheerio.